Hey everybody, it's Dan. Welcome back and welcome to this review that's going to be a little bit unusual for us in that instead of looking at miniatures today, we're going to be looking at the new hobby tools range from Wargames Atlantic. And as with any review, you deserve to know that this is sponsored by Wargames Atlantic because they were kind enough to send this to me for free to take a look at with you guys. So big thanks to them for sending this to us to review together. And the range, as I just mentioned, is totally new. There's just these two items so far in it, consisting of their hard plastic nano files and their hard plastic clippers. And I guess from a review standpoint too, this is new to me as it is to you, I suppose. So I've given a little bit of thought to how I want to do this. I think we're gonna unbox these together, and again, unusually for the channel, the product is still inside of the box because I want to show the kind of unique packaging they come in. And then I'll give you some specs, maybe compare and contrast with some of the alternatives that are on the market. And then I think I want to stress test them, like cut a bunch of stuff off of sprues, comparing these products to my normal method, just using some cheap clippers, and we'll see how they stack up. So I think that's where we're headed. So yeah, I think the design, I really like the packaging that they come in. A little unusual if you compare them to companies like Citadel, like the Army Painter, which also sell comparable products. Those usually come in like clamshell plastic blisters, which allows you to see the product inside of it. Makes it a little bit more tricky, I imagine, from a shipping standpoint. And when we're talking about something like this, like a picture on the front, I think totally suffices as long as the picture adequately demonstrates what's inside of the box, right? So I think this is much cleaner from a display standpoint. I like the new logo for the hobby tools made out of sprues. That's a lot of fun. And then on the back, just little brief blurbs on the product themselves. This mirrors what I saw on the website too, for kind of like a how to use these kind of demonstration, maybe for newer hobbyists. And let's crack them open here so I can show you how they arrive. So again, if you were to pick these up for yourself, what you're going to see is some clippers in some bubble wrap on one side. So I'll put this aside just for a second. And then the nano files, I think because they don't want these jostling around, instead come almost double wrapped. So instead of bubble wrap, they have this like shipping paper just to stop it from shaking. And then they come further wrapped up in these like bits of foam. Alright, so I've got them out of the box here. Let's look at the clippers first. So I'll just slide these off camera here for a second. So the clippers you can see are branded Wargames Atlantic, which I like. I like little branded products. You can kind of make it out there. Still trying to get them to send me like a t-shirt or a hoodie or something because I like branded stuff so much. But from a design standpoint, it's very comparable in size to these cheapo clippers that I got, I think, on Amazon, if I'm not mistaken. So almost the exact same size and almost the exact same weight. This is 59 grams and these I weighed are 57 grams. So almost the same size. You can see there's a difference to the head on it, again, versus these cheapo clippers, where it's got like a long needle nose kind of design to it, and then again a chisel edge there, which should theoretically allow it to kind of like dart into sprues. Spring feels good in the hand, but nice that it bounces back like that. That's what you like to see on a pair of clippers like this. So again, that's the clippers from a initial thoughts standpoint. There are these two files that appear to be made of, feels like glass. Like I can't imagine these are actually glass. Maybe a hardened acrylic of some kind. Yeah, the box says that they're made of nano glass, which again I would just call glass. So, but they feel like, it feels more like a hardened acrylic to me than a glass. It doesn't feel fragile at all. Like I'm not worried about dropping it. Obviously, this is not a hard surface I'm dropping it on. But you can see the center of what they're calling the main file here, which is cylindrical, is smooth to the touch. It does feel quite like glass, I guess, touching it that way. And then on either side, where it's cloudy to you here, it is textured. You can hear a little bit of texture there. There you go, little hobby ASMR for you. And then it's smooth here. There's a texture there. The texture feels about the same on either side of the file. There's a point on this edge and then a chisel on this edge. And then this one appears to be made of the same material. The side of it is cloudy but doesn't feel like it has any texture to it. It's only this side which has a very subtle texture to it, much more subtle than the other one, where down here you got nothing. And then on that side you got a little bit of texture to it. And it seems like it's only on the one flat side. So they look cool from a design standpoint. I think that these work well. I'm curious to see how, if these are really just glass, how they hold up. And these feel great from like an ergonomic standpoint. They bounce back nicely. Let's talk about how they compare to other stuff on the market. I brought in these cheapo clippers that I'd mentioned are like $10 or $12, I think, on Amazon. There are cheaper options out there. I really recommend, if you're a new hobbyist, don't go any cheaper than that, because you'll have clippers that just straight up snap on you. And I know that there are other options in the market, again, like if you're just going into like the tools section of, say, a Home Depot or a tool store like that, you can get options like these. This is a set of channel lock diagonal cutters for wire clipping. That these, I think, are about $25, which is an interesting price point, because that's the price point that these clippers are at. So the clippers are $25 US on their website, and the files are $15. So it's interesting to me, because that is what I will call a considered price point, right? That I have an option on the market that's $12. I've got a very nice set of clippers that I can get for the same price point. Now, if we compare them to the direct competition, say like Citadel, I think those clippers are something insane, like $50 US. And Army Pater, on the other hand, are I think about $15 US for a comparable looking product. So what I'm looking for in juxtaposing these clippers, especially with either the cheapo clippers or, again, a nice set of channel locks, is I want these to be able to dart in and around sprues. I want them to be sharper than these standard clippers, and they look like they're sharper, but we'll see how they hold up. And I want them to clip things off and not shoot across the table, and it looks like that's what the design is intended to do here. So again, for the premium price, which is what I'm going to call that, or I should say for the considered price of $25 for a set of clippers, that's what I'm expecting from a work standpoint. So let's put it to the test here. I'm going to bring out two identical sprues of Wargames Atlantic products, and I will go through and use my new process with these clippers and files to clean up some figures, and I'm going to use my old process of cheap clippers and an X-Acto knife to just scrape off mold lines, and I'm going to compare and contrast the two experiences for you. So we're using a couple of sprues of the Wargames Atlantic Foot Sergeants here to do this test, and I had aspirations to make this like a more objective test, because again, I've never tested anything like this before, or reviewed anything like this before, but I was gonna even kind of like time myself between both sprues. In the end, I ended up just kind of having a good time using out the new tools and kind of snipping stuff off, having fun. And yeah, there's like no objective comparison here. This is more just me testing it out to kind of see how it went. And you can see I'm using the old clippers here first. I'm going and snipping some stuff off of the sprue, and the main problem I have with them, as you can see happening there, is that when you snip small stuff off of the sprue, they shoot across the desk. And this is something that's not even unique to these cheap clippers. This is something that's happened with basically every set of like wire cutter kind of clippers I've ever used, which is that they're not really designed to cut things that small, so they shoot across. Not to mention the fact that those clippers originally had a spring in them, but because they were like a $10 or $12 set of clippers, it fell out after like 3 uses, something like that. So you have to keep like opening them up with your hand, which is not super comfortable when you're cutting out tons and tons of stuff off of a sprue. And then here I'm just cleaning it up with the X-Acto knife. Again, like I've always just used an X-Acto knife, just the side of it, to scrape mold lines off. The problem with doing that, though, I'll freely admit, I'm just lazy, is that you can end up scraping off more than you intend to if you're not careful, and you can end up leaving kind of like streaks on the side of smooth plastic where you don't want it to be. So then I jumped over to the new clippers here, and it did take me probably like 60 seconds to get acclimated to the fact that due to that like hook nose at the end of it, you have to hold them at a slightly different angle than you might be used to. But again, it only took me about a minute, and then after that minute, it was smooth sailing. These things are awesome. Like, not only is it easy to like get in onto the sprue, but they're sharp as hell, as you see me doing there. I mean, it was just like slicing through the sprue like it was nothing, even the thick part of the sprue there, which is very handy, especially with Wargames Atlantic sprues that have a larger number and thicker connection points, which make the sprues safe for transport, allows them to cram a whole lot of bits onto the sprues, but it does mean you're doing a lot of snipping, so might as well make it as comfortable as possible. But then again, I was just complaining about the kind of all other clippers I've ever used having this problem. I was curious to see how these handled these small bits, especially like heads. And you can see there's some bounce, but the bounce all happens after they hit the table. They don't shoot away. Like, it's not like they zip, 10 feet away, like has happened plenty of times when I'm using cheap clippers. In fact, I didn't even mention it, but I think I lost 2 heads when I was snipping stuff off with the cheap clippers. And I was so impressed with this that you can see I actually brought the cheap clippers back just to see if I was imagining the difference, but I found that I was not. That there's a substantial difference between when you use these clippers, when you clip something off of the sprue, it really does just drop directly down, wherever it is you're holding it. It's not like it's gonna jump on you, which is something that I value very highly because I've wasted tons and tons of times trying to track down bits that get away from me. And you can see here again, it's clipping it off, and it's not only easy to do, it's just dropping right down. Any bounce that happens is happening after it hits the table, which is a distinct difference. I moved over to the files then, and I love this little file. This little round file that has the chisel edge on the one side and the points on the other side was super, super handy. I have used metal files before, but I generally find, obviously it has to do with the grit, like how much texture is on them, but I generally find them to be they have too much teeth to them, right? It's too high a grit. And so I end up chewing up the plastic. That's why historically I've only ever just like used the side of an X-Acto knife because it's given me more control. But because this is such a fine file, I found that it was incredibly smooth, easy to use. The point and the chisel, like I found myself alternating between them to try to get into some like hard to reach places like under folds in clothing or on the helmet, like on metal pieces. I found it was just much easier to use. This file is the main file, and I'll be honest with you that I wasn't super impressed with it, only that it's fine on its own. The issue is that it doesn't really do anything that the round file doesn't do just as well. Because this one, at least from the packaging, suggested that this is meant to be used for like cleaning up the main mold lines, but the only part that has texture is that flat side. The sides of it don't. Whereas the round file has lots of different angles that you can use, and there's a flat portion on the chisel that makes it very easy to use for even just like primary mold lines on the sides of legs and stuff. So here you can see one on the side is the one I use the file on. I at least noticed that there's a distinct difference between the two figures there. And I was curious, I went back to the file just to see if I was missing something on it. So this is me using the main file just on a bit of sprue that had Wargames Atlantic printed on it just to see if I could file it down like more aggressively or if it's meant to be used on bigger stuff. And I found just from playing around with it that was not the case. So it's not a bad file, it's fine on its own, but as I said, like if I already have the round file in my hand, I'm not going to switch over to that main file because the round file works just as well. Oh, this is me. I'm just going to be quiet for a second. Just listen to this. So what's the final verdict? I guess let's talk about each of these products separately. So in terms of the Nano files, again, $15 price point for a nice set of files. This is definitely worthwhile. I will say this file, I misspoke at the beginning, this is their main file, which is ostensibly to be used for just cutting down your primary mold lines. Whereas this one, the round file, which makes sense, Dan, because this is the cylindrical one, is the one that's more for like detail work. I found this one to be way more useful in terms of like darting around. It was also great for just the primary mold lines, like going down legs or on arms and stuff like that. So this file I could take or leave. This one though is fantastic. Again, for even $15 for one very nice file. It's surprisingly durable. I was like chucking it against a pair of clippers there, and I was shocked it didn't even have any scratches on it. So this is a great addition, great thing to have. Now let's talk about the main event here, which is a set of clippers. And is this one worthwhile? And I got to be honest with you, when they first announced that they were going to be setting out and doing a line of hobby tools, I was really wary of them sending these to me because I've always been honest with you guys and I'll always be honest with you guys that if this was not a good set of clippers, I would say so, even kind of at the expense of some of the business relationships I've been developing over the years. Because it's not just a question of, is this a good set of clippers? Yeah, it's a good set of clippers, no doubt. It's a question of, is this set of clippers worth $25, which is again about $10 more expensive than the Army Painter equivalent, about twice as expensive as kind of the cheapo stuff that you can get on Amazon that I've been using for years. Half as expensive again as Citadel, but that's not even a fair comparison because Citadel's out of their minds. Is this set of clippers worth $25? Yeah, it really is. I'm shocked to say that, but like it again, because $25 is at the top end of what I would pay for a set of clippers, and again have with my channel locks. Uh, these clippers are obviously easy to hold, spring back, which is something that I like, nice and comfortable, good weight to them. But the real selling point for me is that not only are they sharp, which we'll see if that holds up over time, is something about this chisel design that they've got up at the top makes it not only easy to dart into sprues and cut stuff off, which is great, especially for Wargames Atlantic sprues, which have a higher ratio of connection points because of the number of bits they usually have. Something about this chisel tip makes it to where small bits don't skitter across my work desk when I snip them off of sprues. And that feature is incredible because I can't tell you how many bits I've lost either like to the corners of my hobby space or have had to like get up out of my chair to go like chase down because they shot across the desk. Or I've had to like angle the clippers in such a way that I'm cutting off chunks of sprue just so that they don't jump. And it doesn't matter which way you orient these, when you cut stuff off of sprues, they just drop. And that is incredible. So if you're enjoying these reviews, I do have an affiliate link down in the description, which I'd appreciate you considering using if you were thinking about picking up anything from Wargames Atlantic, because a portion of your purchase is going to come right back to this channel to fueling more review and hobby content. Anyway, thanks again to Wargames Atlantic for sending these our way to take a look at together. Another great addition to your range. Again, excited to see what comes next with it. So appreciate all you for dropping by for this one in the meantime, and until next time, happy gaming.